Awesome stuff. Looks like we've got lots of people coming into the room already. So welcome everybody. Good to have you here. You should be able to see a pinned message at the top of your chat. If not, let me go ahead and type that now real quick. So as you join, please go ahead and let us know your role and the organization that you're with. As soon as I see a couple of responses there, I'll know that you've seen the message. Lots of good mornings. Thank you, everybody. Good morning to you all. Starting to see some familiar names coming into the room, so good to have you here. Wow, just over 2 minutes into the session, and we've already got over 120 people. Thank you, Nick. That tells me that you can see the message. All right, let's go ahead and welcome everybody officially. So welcome to this really exciting and awesome webinar this morning with a collaboration between CFO South Africa and Oracle. Now, 7 years ago, when CFO South Africa initially started, Oracle was one of our main supporters then and continues to be an incredible supporter of the CFO community right up until today and moving forward into the future as well. So really excited about this collaboration and partnership this morning. And I think most importantly as well, you know, we all tread in this really uncertain time at the moment, and we don't have a kind of rule book or a playbook that we can refer back to. So with all this uncertainty and during this time of crisis, there's absolutely no doubt that the more in tune we are when it comes to our kind of scenario modeling, the more likely we are to achieve success during these uncertain and unstable times. So we'd love to hear from you as well to find out a little bit more about where you are in your journey as it relates to scenario modeling. So you'll see over on the right-hand side of your screen, I'm just about to go ahead and publish a poll now. So go ahead and respond as you see that pop up in your chat now, please. Seeing lots of familiar faces, or not faces, rather seeing lots of familiar names in the room. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. And also what's important is today's session, the aim is not to be a monologue. This is your community. We really value all of your inputs, your thoughts, your ideas, and your suggestions. So during our session here today, please make sure that you go ahead and you type any questions that you have in the chat. Once you've done that, one of my colleagues will go ahead and flag the message, and we'll make sure that every single question or concern that you address here today, you will receive either an answer as part of our later Q&A wrap-up, or we will definitely get back to you within a period of about 24 to 48 hours with a personalized email with the answer to your question or concern. So don't be shy, chat with us. Okay, I can see lots of responses coming in already. I'm going to give it about another 10 seconds or so, and then I'm going to go ahead and publish those results for us. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and introduce one of our presenters for this morning. So we'll give you about another 5 seconds there. And Wayne, I don't know if you can see the responses just yet, but I think you're going to be quite amazed at what we see here. All right, we said we'd give you 5 seconds. Your 5 seconds is up. So go ahead and look at those results now. So Wayne, I'm not sure if you can see the responses, but to our question there, you can see them?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
What do you think about using Excel as a modeling tool with almost half of our audience here today?
Yeah, that doesn't come as a large surprise. That you know, most customers we speak to are in that world, I guess.
Perfect.
Very, very interesting.
And just as way of official introduction, the voice you are hearing now is Wayne Heather, who's the Executive Director of EPM Product Marketing at Oracle. Don't be fooled by his accent. He is a South African who's been living in Windsor for the last 19 years, and he's been with Oracle for close to 15 years now. So we're in really, really good hands. I know that Wayne's got some really interesting insights and stories that he's going to be sharing with us today. So Wayne, why don't you jump up on camera real quick? While you do that, I'll load your slides, and then we can kick off our session officially.
Thank you, John.
Cool. There we go. I'm going to hand over to you. All yours.
Great. Thanks, John. So welcome, everybody. And, you know, I'm quite excited to be here today with CFO SA, and also very keen to hear from Johan from MTN, who's decided to join us. So I thought what I would do is just share with you what we've seen in the industry, what some of our customers are telling us around scenario modeling, and talking about how we're helping some of them, in these strange times. So just a quick run through of the agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID and finance, and why finance is important, why scenario modeling matters. I guess based on you guys probably sitting in the office of finance, that's not news to you. I'll give you a very quick overview of scenario modeling. I'm not going to make this a product pitch. And then Oracle has decided to, as a gesture of goodwill, to try and help some of his customers. So I'll talk a little bit about that offer as well. So, we're in the middle of very strange times now, but disruptive events are not new. They've come around, in many shapes. We've seen, the recession. There's been 9/11. There's a whole bunch of disruptive events that have happened. And for me, I think the key thing is, that there's always positive. The sun will shine. Things will get better, but it's just tough times at the moment. And what we found is, in my many years of experience in working in EPM, is that EPM really becomes sort of front and center in finance organizations during these times to help them, remodel their business and be agile in finance. But if we look at this one, how is this time very different? I've just highlighted a few things over here. The key thing for me is the high uncertainty, right? No one knows what the other side is going to look like, but even more, they don't know when it's going to come, right? Because there's talk of a second wave. What happens then? And the fact that some of the disruptive events that have happened before, affect maybe some industries and not others, but this one has impacted every industry out there. Some positive, and a lot of them negative. Also, the high employment rates are absolutely massive at the moment. I don't think there's a time I can remember where I've seen unemployment rates at this scale, and that has got a knock-on effect throughout the different industry. For example, if you look at high employment rates and you look across retail, people aren't spending money, so retailers are suffering, etc. And then the large thing is, the next thing is the largest stimulus packages in history in the US, in the UK. I'm sure in South Africa. So, there's a lot of uncertainty in this market at the moment, and no one seems to know when we're going to get some sort of certainty. And because of that, I guess, what you do next is very, very important. Okay, how you model through this crisis, how you survive, how you conserve cash, how you plan and reimagine your business to come out the other side is very key, right? There's a quote on screen from Morgan Stanley. I'm not going to read it. You guys can probably read quicker than I can speak. But the key message there is being resilient, right? That is the key message, or the focus that you want to have. And if you look at what McKinsey say is, they've taken a look at many crises before and what companies have done, and they say, if you look at a company that's resilient versus non-resilient, those resilient companies actually use this as an opportunity going forward. So if you agile and resilient within your finance office, you can probably model your understand your revenues and your cost impacts, and you can add more resources to those revenue generating operations within your business and start cutting costs in other places. So you can actually use this as an opportunity. I know working for Oracle in the 2008 recession, Oracle actually used that recession as a massive opportunity. If you go back and you look at their history, they went on a massive acquisition spur. So they used that downturn in the economy. They were in the fortunate place to be cash rich and managed to go and acquire a lot of companies to bolster their revenue and make them a stronger and bigger company going forward. So one of our customers that we spoke to a while ago, I was fortunate enough to host them on a webinar. the guy who's the director of strategic finance there said flexibility and agility is key now more than ever in their business. So being able to understand, how they can change, how they can remodel, how they can address certain issues, was key for them. And I'll talk a little bit later about Lululemon and share a little more of their journey through scenario modeling. But, the key thing that we're getting from a lot of customers we're speaking to is agility is key. Being able to change and model for different, I guess, impacts on your business and address them is the key to survival. When we talk to these companies, they kind of focusing on a few things. So they're looking at forecasting multiple scenarios, right? So plus or minus 75% of the companies we talk about are in that phase of modeling different scenarios, reimagining what can their business look like going forward. And they've developed KPIs specific to the times that we're in, right? Specifically to address those issues that have been driven by the COVID, economic downturn. Also, they've changed, typically companies do a lot of long-range forecasts, set strategies at a high level. And a lot of those companies now, because of the times we're in, have changed that. And they're now using very short-term rolling forecasts. So they're modeling at a high level their scenarios, pushing it down into their financial and operational forecasts. And they're doing that at a very rapid pace to change what they're doing and how they can conserve cash, which is the big thing that we're finding with our customers. And then also, they're performing range-based forecasts as opposed to point-based forecasts. So that's another key driver. So they're focusing on essentially those three next points. And if you look at scenario modeling, when we talk about scenario modeling, how does that help manage uncertainty? Well, there's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. And what we have to do is we've got to try and model for different outcomes based on the things that we don't know. So things like, no one knows how long this pandemic will last. There's talk of some vaccine trials going on trial now and maybe available by December. But they say that the virus is also changing and maybe those vaccines won't be as effective as they thought it would be. The main concern a lot of our customers is talking about is, will we run out of cash? Cash is king. So, and I'm going to talk about two customers that shared their journey with us. And you can see how both of them, conserving cash and trying to generate revenue from different sources was very much top of their mind. Also, are your debtors withholding payments? Even though they're credit worthy, they're also going to be in the same position you are, right? Conserving cash, what are we going to do? So, that's something you don't know. What shape will the recovery be? Will it be, a soft W shape? Will it be a sharp V shape? No one really knows at the moment. So, and that depends, I guess, also on the industry that you're in terms of what the outcome will look on the other side. What is the impact of supply chains? That is really key if you don't have a connected planning process, because you might rely on suppliers from China, and when China went into lockdown, suddenly your supply chain was disrupted. So you couldn't get the inventory that you needed, and that'll then have a knock-on impact on your sales, for example. And what is customer behavior doing at the moment? How is that changing? I can talk for myself. I've gone to shopping online completely for the stuff that I need. I've also cut down on luxury spend, so only buying necessary items, for example. So if you're a business that relies massively on customers, how is that customer behavior going to change? And then the big thing is, going forward, will customer behavior revert back to what it was, or are you going to see a whole new behavior pattern in your customers that's going to be consistent going forward? No one really knows. So being able to model those different scenarios and using things like Monte Carlo simulations to help you iterate through hundreds of different iterations of those models is something that our customers are looking at doing at the moment. And I thought what I'd do is just highlight a few industry use cases from what we've seen and some of the customers I've been speaking to and what they've been telling us. So, if you look at oil and gas is a very capital intensive industry. So for them, alternate funding options is something that they're definitely looking at. Also, there's been a massive volatility in the oil market. People aren't driving much at all. People aren't flying much at all. So, there's an overstock in the market of oil. So what happens to prices? And then, a few of the companies I've spoken to in that line are considering divestitures. Looking at their portfolio of companies and saying, there's certain companies that at the moment they're looking to get rid of because they need to focus their resources more on revenue generating concerns within their business. Also, if you look at healthcare, healthcare has been affected massively by the uptake in COVID claims around medical aids, but also, they've been adversely affected by the unemployment. So what happens is there's less elective procedures, but also because people are unemployed, companies aren't paying medical aid benefits to these companies, so they've got a membership decline. So again, they're suffering from a revenue impact, but they're also getting the increased demand on COVID patients and COVID claims. So very, very interesting dynamic in that industry. Travel and transport, I guess that's self-explanatory. People aren't flying anymore. I live in Windsor, and Windsor's quite close to the airport, so you normally hear planes all the time. At the moment, it's dead quiet. I'm loving it. But that industry is going through massive turmoil at the moment. People say that the travel industry will only get back to normal in 2023. So what does the industry look like for the next 2 years? There's massive unemployment in that industry. Retail, I've alluded to some of the stuff that's affecting retail. A lot of people have moved to online. There's a lot of stores that are closing. If I walk through Windsor High Street now, I can see shops that used to be there that are now closed, and I don't think they'll be open again. And a lot of companies are actually moving their sales channel to online. So they this crisis has forced them to change a business model, and they need to be able to plan for that, because there's a lot of things that they need to change within their business model to support that sort of thing. Real estate, again, massive rental defaults. And that's almost related back to retail. So because people aren't in shops, the shops have closed, they're not opening their stores, and they're saying to their shopping malls or real estate providers, well, we're not using those facilities, we're not going to pay you rent. So, and that has a massive impact. For example, in the US, a lot of pensions are tied in mortgage-backed securities. So if those are affected because the mortgages are defaulted on, there's a lot of people's pensions that can be affected, because those mortgage-backed or those pension funds will have to exit the mortgage-backed securities. And then higher education. So, for example, Cambridge University in the UK, massive university over here, said that they're not going to offer any more physical classes until 2021. So they've moved their whole business to online. So there's a lot of revenue that they will lose, which is incidental revenue around their campus events that they used to hold at the campus. So again, a massive revenue stream wiped out for them. So you can see this has an effect on almost every industry you can imagine. So now, what is unique in terms of strategic modeling or scenario modeling? So if we look at typically the use case that our customers would do with strategic modeling, they would be very much, I guess, on the left-hand side of the screen, where they would model, their long-range plans. They look at corporate initiatives, maybe some M&A, mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, etc. And then I know Treasury, was a massive user of strategic finance, looking at modeling different Treasury initiatives within the business. And typically, once they've set that high-level long-range plan, they push that down into the financial and operational plan, which would be typically annually, on a rolling forecast basis. And that is the normal use case. But we've seen that behavior change, and we've seen customers, instead of looking at a strategic long-range forecast, like I said, model in a very much a shorter term, model different scenarios for different entities or business units within the business, be it different geographies or different departments within their business, and then quickly trying to consolidate those at a high level to get a group picture and push that back into the planning and reporting cycle again. So the thing that's happened is that cadence has increased massively for our customers. So again, I won't spend too much time on the slide. I've alluded to some of the things before, but basically, they've moved from long-range planning to crisis planning. So the things they're focusing on is very much revenue and the things that can impact revenue. So, supply chain, stimulus tax credits, etc. They're modeling those drivers, not the traditional, growth things that they would model going forward. Also, the frequency of strategic modeling in crisis, in times of crisis, has the cadence has increased significantly, and that's what our customers are telling us. They're not doing it quarterly; it's more monthly, sometimes weekly, and typically, a long-range plan was done annually or quarterly. So the cadence is massive over there, and then they've pushed that into the planning really, really quickly to understand what is realistic from a change within the business, because it's no good setting high-level strategies if you can't push that down and get feedback from the ground in terms of what's possible and what's not possible. So, having that tightly integrated back office where strategic finance and planning is integrated has delivered massive value to our customers. So there's two stories I'd like to share. Lululemon is one of them. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Lululemon, they are a retailer that specializes in sports apparel, primarily for yoga and aerobic sports, right? So they're not your traditional sports shop, but they're very much around yoga and well-being of sports goods. They used to be a Hyperion planning on-premises customer and a strategic finance customer, but lucky for them, just before the pandemic, they actually moved from on-premises to the cloud and implemented EPM cloud planning. And there was a few significant benefits for them. So, the guy who runs their finance department said one of the issues that they had on-premise back in the day when they were using Hyperion was the technology was good. They loved the technology, but it wasn't fully integrated. So they had a problem with the flow of data. So they would set their strategic plan, but found it very difficult to then seed that data into planning. It wasn't a seamless process. And by moving to the cloud, they've managed to integrate strategic planning and their financial and operational planning much better. Also, it's led to improved connectivity across FP&A at a group level and also in their different regions, right? So the things that they plan for Lululemon is very much focused on their customer experience. So how can they retain customers, keep them in the store, membership schemes, and what they do actually is they offer yoga classes in store. So often you'll go past a Lululemon store and you'll see a whole bunch of people in the store doing yoga. So they were very much around customer experience. They also plan very much for product innovation and then growth within US, Canada, and also internationally. And having a connected plan, the regions were much better connected. They also said that being on the cloud, their manual work and processing times were reduced significantly. And also what they did was a very interesting story is they first had to conserve cash massively because obviously all their stores closed, so they didn't have the normal footfall within their store. They quickly decided they wanted to retain the customer experience by expanding their membership scheme to online yoga classes. They also really pushed their online retail sales, so they moved their sales channel to be primarily online. And because of that, they were able to actually weather the storm, and they made a $500 million acquisition of a company called Fitness Mirror, and that goes in line with their customer experience. So being able to offer their customers more of a service at home. So, using scenario modeling, they were able to kind of weather this crisis a little bit, but also reimagine what their business is going to look like going forward. Another customer is Mesa Rich. So Mesa Rich is a company that effectively builds shopping malls around the US. They're a very capital intensive business. They are always trying to acquire new property or build new malls. And then also there's obviously the capital spend that goes with having a mall in terms of upkeep, maintenance, etc. So, for them, when I spoke to them, the big message for them is cash is king, cash is king, cash is king. In fact, the guy I spoke to there said they hoarding cash at the moment like people used to hoard toilet paper. They use scenario modeling again to model which are the projects that they should focus on and which are the projects that they can completely cut to conserve cash. They went through a tough time. They had to withdraw their quarterly guidance and also offered shares as dividends. So they did everything they can to try and conserve cash within their business. They used scenario modeling, again, was an on-premise customer, moves to cloud. And they used scenario modeling to model their capital, the impacts that this scenario is having on their capital structure, very much focused around liquidity. And also what they did is using the funding options, they modeled different scenarios and decided what they were going to do is actually they were going to tap the credit that they had within the bank. So they fully extended the credit that they had. And the reason for that is they said in the 2008 crisis, what happened was, even though you were a customer that had a good relationship with a bank, you were very creditworthy, because everybody else around you was tapping their credit, the banks would suddenly say, look, everybody else is tapping their credit, we're gonna cut your credit. So again, use scenario modeling to try and reimagine what they're going to look like going forward. And you will hear I did mention moving from on-premise Hyperion up to the cloud. And the cloud did not only deliver technology benefits from an application standpoint, but also, this is a quote from one of our customers, a massive fashion brand based in Europe, and they actually sent this email to us without even prompting. And they said that there would be no way that they could have managed their plan. So they use planning. And there was no ways that they could have managed their plan, the way they did if they'd been on-premise. So moving to cloud just meant everybody's working from home, and you can just access the cloud from anywhere. So again, moving to the cloud was a significant benefit for them, not from an applications point of view, but just from an access point of view. So this is my last slide, but what I'd like to just let you guys know, in case you don't know of this already. So what Oracle has done as a gesture of goodwill is, for every customer that is currently on their cloud planning suite, regardless of the license that you have, we have opened up scenario modeling to our customers to use until April the 30th, 2021, free of charge. So we will give every planning user that has got access to cloud planning on your planning platform access to scenario modeling to help you effectively go through the exercises that a lot of our customers have done with scenario modeling and help you model the impacts of your business going forward. Thank you very much. And I think I'm now going to hand over to Johan from MTN, who's going to share his journey with us.
And thank you so much. Really insightful presentation. And I see we had a comment in the chat from Tatiana asking about use cases for the telecoms industry. So I don't think there's been a better opportunity or a better segue than now for Wayne to jump on. So Wayne, let me load up your slides, and you're welcome to jump up on camera here as well. Sorry, not Wayne, Johan rather. So Johan is the General Manager of Enterprise Performance Management over at MTN. He's been with MTN for just short of 5 years, and he's going to be sharing some really cool insights around their journey on strategic planning. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Johan. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone, and thank you for dialing in this morning. My name is John Pretorius, and I am responsible for enterprise performance management across MTN. 2020 has certainly been an interesting year so far and presented challenges that few models predicted or business continuity plans even imagined, much less mitigated for. Thankfully, MTN is not unaccustomed to managing risks. Today, I will highlight the strategic objectives that helped us weather the storm and underscore the capabilities required for strategic alignment. This is quite a difficult talk to give as the storm still rages around us. This is very much also still a work in progress, but I hope some of our learnings are helpful to you. A bit about us for those not from Africa. MTN is the largest telco in Africa and the Middle East with 257.3 million customers in interesting places like Afghanistan, Rwanda, Syria, and Yemen. Our largest operations are in Nigeria, South Africa, and Iran. We are clearly not risk averse and pride ourselves on managing and pricing for high risk operating environments. Even so, you can't plan for everything, and as the last few years have shown, low probability events have developed a habit of becoming reality. MTN was founded in 1994 at the dawn of democracy in South Africa and has grown through acquisition and federated operating entities ever since. The brand and customer experience have always been prioritized with our back office operations and systems, sometimes struggling to keep up. Thankfully, the rapid growth ensured enough budget allocation to spend our way out of trouble. But since 2016, when the company skirted with an existence-threatening fine, reality and prudence have kicked in. The focus shifted dramatically, and with a new C-suite at the helm, the strategy changed. Normally, a new broom sweeps clean, and restructure and deduplication becomes the buzzwords. But Rob Schutter as CEO and Ralph McPeter as CFO focused on growth and consolidation. The new strategy, BRIGHT, was similar to most acronym-derived task lists, but where it differed was the allocation of KPIs and targets for all initiatives. The strategy was compact enough to ensure all employees could relate to their daily tasks, and focused and clear enough to be measurable. After a period of decentralized leadership, the core reasserted its importance as the group started to leverage its reach and size. For finance, this also served as a reawakening, as the subscription to best-in-class cloud solutions offered by Oracle forced a rethink on the business processes and their impacts. A standardized chart of accounts was compiled and rolled out, linking the group and the operations, but more importantly, linking the financial and management reporting processes. Direct links between the business planning processes, which look after quantitative and prospective wish lists, and translating these to financial forecasts allowed for rigor and realistic estimations. Starting with foundational building blocks enabled MTN to rethink and reimagine the disclosures, reporting and information presented and used for decision-making. Data, like water, flows best in straight and linear pipes. Building the pipes using purpose-specific applications allowed for harmonized and reconciled data flows. Linking the financial processes back to business reporting, assist with decision-making, and hopefully ensures our high-margin business has sufficient insight to navigate risk. Of course, the secret of operating in a high-risk environment is balancing the high risk with an appropriate reward. High margins indicate substantial risks, and for those who paid attention to our margins on the previous slide, will understand that the risk is also substantial. Emerging markets with high growth are not easy to do business in. However, they present the opportunity to establish first-mover advantage and to leverage learnings from other regions. Standardization is critical in this process and is a topic that is close to my own heart. The key was to acknowledge the need for standardization and, like with the chart of accounts, ensuring group-wide buy-in and backing. Focusing on all stakeholders and not only the group reporting teams ensured early uptake by the opcos, with benefits and automation freeing up country teams to analyze and interrogate the numbers. In the past, 80% of the time was spent compiling the reports, but using standardized templates, processes, and definitions, the analysis and exception handling moved back into focus. Starting with reporting also highlighted the data deficiencies, process enhancements required, and bottlenecks. Therefore, the change to standardized datasets allowed for consistent measurement and reporting of risk. The process is in its early days, with the consolidation process nearing completion, but reports and automation based on the new systems are in place. As we cut over, the reporting and the integrations allow for reduced workloads, but highlights issues in data quality as we go along, informing future developments and focus areas. With the new standardization initiatives well underway during 2018 and 2019, 2020 rolled around. And let's be honest, no amount of planning and prudence could prepare a finance reporting team for what happened next. COVID-19 presented a whole new realm of possibility when it comes to unforeseen business impacts. Unlike financial or political crises, it has an inherently human impact. It is truly the great equalizer. While government and business reactions have differed across the globe, the underlying human fear is the same from Cape Town to Kabul. I think MTN's great strength during the crisis was its ability to respond to the human desire for connection in a time of isolation. While business need connectivity to remain in operation, there's nothing as personal as hearing the voice of a loved one. Like all corporates, the knee-jerk reaction was to batten down the hatches, conserve capital, and cut expenses. This wasn't only limited to financial prudence, but as employees, we received bucket loads of sanitizer and were advised to work from home well before it became the norm in corporate South Africa. However, in isolation, these measures are not enough. A strong strategy must underpin your roadmap out of a crisis. Because our own bases were covered early, MTN was able to raise our heads and see the external needs early in the pandemic. An authentic response was expected from a brand such as ours, and the response cemented MTN as SA's top brand. The standardization projects and initiatives enjoyed renewed focus. The promise of seamless connections to cloud solutions being proven in the heat of battle. MTN Uganda adopted the cloud ERP in May. The new cloud human capital management solutions is being rolled out at an incredible speed across the organization. It is already live in 5 OpCos operating companies from a standing start in December 2019. Back office solutions shouldn't be customized if it doesn't ensure competitive advantage. Once this is accepted, standard processes may be adopted using existing training material and tapping into the experience and learnings of other corporates. The other corporates who onboard employees, pay invoices, and update supplier details exactly as we do. The power of the pragmatic frameworks catering for the basics ensured the foundational processes which can drag down any organization jump to industry standard. I believe that a strong strategy is what enabled us to stay focused during what can only be described as an unfocused time. Of course, certain elements of a strategy will be delayed in a crisis, but understanding where you are going and having a clear idea of how to get there and the benefits you are targeting is critical in weathering a storm. A simple strategy, which is well understood, can align purpose across business pillars and can make project prioritization easier. Standardized systems and processes using uniform and curated data sets allow for comparable reporting. Ensuring reports and information are understandable and digestible make for appropriate reactions in unprecedented circumstances. The ability to see a global picture when your competitors are scrambling to interpret diverse data sets creates opportunities and enables agile decision-making. MTN is still on its journey, but we've already seen a big difference with the standardization of the chart of accounts linking to our key value chains. The ability to measure and compare performance across diverse operations enables strategic refinement. This promotes forward-looking solutions and encourages resources who are comfortable modeling and presenting innovative solutions to new or old problems. The crux of our efforts in the finance and reporting streams have been keeping the wheels rolling while building the new solutions. The first steps reap big benefits, and we hope that the end-to-end business planning process, capital allocations, reporting, strategic alignment will set us up for a winning 2021. The ability to plan on the same platforms, ensuring every division uses the same forex rates, complies to the same standard definitions, within agreed timelines, actually creates flexibility. The simplified input allows for more complex scenario modeling. As can be seen on the slide, the company has earmarked target markets with distinct product offerings. Ensuring all planning and forecasting links to these creates focus. The automation of reporting over standardized data sets enhances clarity of the strategies. What are the real impacts and drivers? What investments are living up to the business cases? A key ingredient in our approach was to build up the complexity over time. First, obtain compliance over the basic inputs, then build from there. Allowing different operating companies to slot in at different levels also ensures that the more advanced operations can leverage additional functionalities. Learnings filter back down to the smaller operations and late adopters. So what have we learned? I think that the biggest thing that I've learned is it's hard and takes time. The results may be worth it, but patience is required to realign fractured and fragmented business imperatives. Focusing on the standardization of reporting and information drives the alignment of processes. It is really a case of starting with the end in mind. Present a picture of what the expected outcome is, and then start automating and integrating processes to the ideal state. Make sure your foundation is sound. First standardize, then automate. The ideal state will quickly become a tactical solution, and like all tactical short-term solutions, it will become the strategic long-term solution. Modeling different scenarios require a base scenario. The base scenario should be as accurate as possible and reflect the drivers and levers influencing performance. You manage what you measure, but we didn't get it completely right. But we had solutions in place to report the impact and model the options. The differentiating factor was knowing where to turn, what was available, what's required to provide sufficient information to make decisions. The uncertainty of scenarios and obtaining sufficient data entails having sufficient knowledge and information about your non-crisis state. Real-time, big data, and advanced analytics sound wonderful, but they are not. They are end states. They're not intermediate steps. Having resources and solutions in place to constantly monitor and model scenarios has become a necessity. So, in conclusion, standardization and simplification were our guiding principles, and also remembering that sometimes almost is good enough. I've got a last slide here just for the questions, but thank you very much for your time. And if you have any pressing questions, my CFO is on next week.
Awesome. Johan, thank you so much. Very insightful and nice to hear some of the practical elements around scenario planning. So I think what will be good now, I'm going to go ahead and stop the slides. So Wayne, I'm going to ask you to jump back on camera as well, please. And then what do you say we take a bit of a deeper dive into some of the nuts and bolts of getting this off the ground. One of the first questions I'd like to ask you, Johan, you mentioned that the guiding principles were around standardization and simplification. Is there a, I don't know, you said it wasn't an easy journey either. So is there a specific starting point that you would like to encourage others to begin at? Where would you suggest people start?
John, I think for us it worked quite well to honestly start with reporting. We compiled consistent reporting packages with consistent layouts, and then by having the endpoint, almost the information layout agreed, it was a lot easier then to start standardizing what feeds into your reporting layers. So I think if you start with that, you almost force standardized structures, and when it comes to scenario modeling or any modeling for that matter, the less time you spend cleaning up data and getting your data in the right format, the more time you can spend on actually looking at the drivers and what's the impacts of those.
Okay, thanks. Wayne, anything you'd add from your 15 years of experience there? Anything you'd add on top of that? Obviously, Johan's talking about the sort of practical elements.
I think one thing that that Johan brought out, which I thought was quite key, is, and I actually wrote down a quote that he said, which is standardization allows flexibility. So I know a lot of companies, especially back in the old days in the on-premises world, used to, because they had the software on their premises, they used to customize it a lot. But nowadays, when you look at the applications that get delivered on the cloud, there's a lot of innovation that goes into delivering best practice and continuously get updated. And I think we've seen from our customers, and it's great that Johan mentioned that, is just using that standardized out of the box, I guess, capabilities that are delivered sometimes allows a lot more flexibility than customers think. So just simplify things. Simple is good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I know that there's some additional resources that we're going to be sharing towards the latter half of our session, but just going back to our poll from earlier. So some tips and advice here from both of you gents, please. So we can see that 21% of the audience said that they do not have a scenario modeling tool. Then we can see that 15% said modeling for possibilities of what our reimagined business may look like. So there's some sort of progress there. Struggling to keep up with the pace that we need to remodel and forecast with 9%. I'm going to skip over Excel for now. And then 6% of our audience said that they're in pretty good shape with scenario modeling process. So perhaps they work in Johan's team over at MTN. I
think that the point is the scenario modeling. For me, it's more around the mindset that you require it than it is actually implementing a tool. Because the moment you have your standard reporting, your standard view of your performance across the organization, the obvious next question is okay, but what does this look like in next year's budget and the year thereafter? And before you know it, you're moving into a scenario planning situation. The key with scenario planning for me is also that only one of them can be the budget. So once you've played out all your scenarios, you need to pick one and then do a bottom-up budget around that. But having a tool in place, then at least you can compare back all the various scenarios that you played out versus what you actually selected. And then it just refines your next processes to actually allow you to see what's the impact of the decisions you're making.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting where you said in the early stages when you were going through the planning or the process, and you said that you need to take a look at situations that are, it's challenging now when you're on crisis to look at situations that are not in crisis in kind of isolation as well.
Yes, I think it's critical to understand what's the key drivers in your business and what impacts those. Because you don't want to end up in a crisis modeling scenario where you're not exactly sure by pulling what levers, what's the impact. So I think, and also there's normally big focus on getting all the details right. But scenario modeling, you just need enough information to inform a decision. It needn't be 100%.
You also mentioned, Johan, that obviously Rob and Ralph came up with, did you say Bright strategy?
Yes. So the Bright strategy has been with us for 2-3 years by now. I think it was all around just simplifying the business back to having a handful of initiatives rather than focusing on 20 strategies, not actually then following through on any of those.
Yeah.
So it was all around, there was a key focus on just becoming best in class, best customer experience, and that's what the B stood for. And you see, I mean, it was simple enough that I can even remember it.
Yeah.
There was a big focus on the returns and efficiencies, which was the R. I was all about igniting performance. G was growth. H was for the HR folk. I think it was something like hearts and minds or something.
Yeah.
And then T was for technology.
Okay.
But I think it wasn't really about the strategy. It was more around the fact that we're not going to slice and dice the organization to now all of a sudden drive efficiencies and cut expenses.
Okay.
But let's rather look at the organization and see what we can grow and consolidate to support the growth. So it was always a forward-looking strategy, which then also forced the tools and solution implementations to follow.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Johan. I see we've just received a question in the chat there from Charles Nash, so we're going to go ahead and look at that. But if there are any other questions, either for Wayne or Johan, now's your opportunity to ask them while we've got these two great minds in the room. So what do you say we look at Charles's question? So he's saying, could you use probability analysis within that scenario analysis to better manage risk and change?
Yes, but I think it's difficult because probability analysis, there's a fair amount of assumptions you have to make around that. And I think the low probability events that you model for, like I said earlier, I mean, they've got a nasty habit of becoming high probability very quickly.
Yeah.
We were significantly impacted with sanctions on Iran, which is our third largest operating company. And that's due to a low probability election outcome. So yes, I do think you can add the probabilities, but it's more around, I think, having the conversation about what is all the potential things that could impact us. And then almost in the conversation coming out with different mitigating factors. What would you do differently if some certain things happened? Okay. But I don't think you'll get your probabilities right.
Okay. Thank you. Anything you'd like to add to that, Wayne?
I think Johan's probably nailed that one. One of the things I can say is, what we found is a lot of customers have taken to using our Monte Carlo simulation capability at the moment to stress test a lot of the strategies that they're embarking on. So, that is something we've noticed that our customers are doing, and it's kind of helping, I guess, de-risk the decisions or strategies they're trying to embark on, or the decisions they're making.
Okay.
Wayne, and I think also with there's a big push on the predictive planning where you almost the system spits out a forecast, whether you use it or not. At least you've got something to compare it with.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful in that all of a sudden you get a forecast whether you completed one or not.
Yep.
But for that you do need sufficient history. You must onboard early. You must. Yep. I mean, there's a range of things going with that. So I think you're adding something like the Monte Carlo analysis. To do that, you need 2 years of history in the system. So I think it's a maturing capability. It's not where you will start.
No. Yeah.
Perfect. Johan, there's another question addressed there for you from Delinia Lubuskachny, and she's saying, do business people participate in the scenario modeling, or is it more left to finance and then to inform or advise the rest of the business? I guess there's no silver bullet.
No, and I think it also depends on who you ask, because everyone wants to participate in these things. But at the moment, we're really focusing on just getting the solutions in place and assisting the finance community first. They are the ones driving a lot of the key decisions. But we have a project underway at the moment where we're rolling out a business planning solution for Network Group. Now, Network Group in MTN is like the crown jewel, because they establish the network, drive the revenue, they feed into marketing. So the feedback from then their process into finance will be critical to get this right, because you also need to ensure that from a financial perspective, it might make absolute sense. But when you try and execute it or roll it out, there might be valid reasons why it doesn't work. Okay. So I think getting the business people involved is critical, but you first need the capability to scenario model in finance.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know that in the build-up to our webinar, you would have noticed on the registration page towards the bottom, there was a survey question which asked, what challenges are you facing around scenario planning in these uncertain times? So, Johanna, I'm not sure if you experienced or actually are experiencing any of these challenges, and maybe Wayne, with your experience, you can speak to this one. There was a question from, I hope I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Marumache Moshe, who said, doesn't your plan B get outdated whilst you're still trying to execute plan A?
I guess that's very much what's happening at the moment. Hence the cadence that people are doing, their range-based forecasts. So if you look at it, typically a lot of people, if your year end begins in January, they came into 2020, massive growth plans, things are going to happen, and pretty quickly that plan was irrelevant, totally irrelevant. Yeah. So we find, customers we're speaking to are the rate at which they having to model and change is key, and hence, like I said earlier on, being agile enough to be able to change and model new drivers, new impacts really, really quickly is definitely what companies are doing at the moment.
Okay. Did you have a similar experience, Johan? Or are you having a similar experience?
Yes, no, I think everyone always hoped for monthly forecasting when we were just doing quarterly market updates, and now all of a sudden it is moving to the end users want capability to remodel and reimagine it weekly, daily. So there's definitely a big push to deliver solutions that caters for more closer to real-time information feeds.
Okay. Thank you. Wayne, I don't know if you've seen the question in the chat there from Graham Hodges.
No. Who do you find the adoption usage of our system in a company, and what do you find are the regular stumbling blocks with developing scenario modeling capability? So the who the adopters, I guess it's primarily driven by finance. I would say is the people that will push that out. We find sometimes, back to the question that Johan just answered, that depending on the industry, sometimes they do try and push it out into certain lines of business, but keeping it very, very high level. The stumbling blocks, I would say, is and again, Johan covered this earlier on, is sometimes people try and overcomplicate it, so they try and model too many scenarios. So focus on 3, maximum 5. Even 5 is pushing it, but kind of keep it simple, and then focus on those scenarios you think most likely. So that is the big thing.
Perfect. I see we are also fast approaching the top of the hour. So Wayne and Johan, I want to give you a final opportunity just to share some thoughts, suggestions, or ideas as people start thinking of their own scenario planning.
So John, thank you very much for having us. I think the key for me is just it's not simple. Very few people got it right. I mean, it was a bit misleading in the invitation where it said where MTN got it right. I think the key thing we've realized is this is not the first crisis. It won't be the last one. The key thing is knowing what you have to cope with it. What do you need to put in place? What's your next actions to get there? Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Johan. Wayne?
Again, I'm actually going to echo something that Johan said, and it's what we try and tell our customers is, keep it simple. You use the stuff that's out the box. Customization is sometimes causes more pain than anything else. And when we say keep it simple, it's not only from in terms of implementing the technology, but when you're looking at going on your journey of scenario modeling, don't try and model for everything. Model your key drivers, the things that really impact your business, and that's the biggest value you're going to get, I think.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm just in the process of pasting a link into the chat now. So you'll see if you go ahead and click on that, that'll direct you to the Oracle website. And there you'll be able to download a white paper on scenario modeling in the EPM cloud, forecasting beyond a crisis. So go ahead and check that out after our session. And then I saw Dumisani's comment in the chat where he said that these webinars are so good. I'm very pleased to hear that you've been enjoying them, Dumisani. And for everybody else who's also been enjoying them, I'm going to go ahead and let you know about our next upcoming sessions. So as Johan rightly mentioned earlier, next week we'll have Ralph Mupita, who's of course the CFO of MTN, and most importantly, the 2019 CFO of the year. So he'll be having a fireside chat with Georgina Guedes, sharing some insights and just general thoughts around how he's been experiencing everything and reflecting on the year that changed everything. And then a week after that, in line with our Women's Month, we'll be hosting a really cool executive panel. So we can see that this is all about being true to yourself. We'll be focusing on the language that we use as women in business. And you can see we'll be joined by Candice Watson, who's the CHRO or Group of Human Capital over at AECI. We'll have Megan Pirigaru, who's the Group FD of EOH, and I believe one of very few females in the top listed companies. And then we'll have Inga Walters from Eve Learning, who will be the leadership practitioner and sharing some of her thoughts and ideas there. So again, just wanted to take an opportunity to thank everybody for joining us here today. Like I mentioned in the chat, there will definitely be a recording going out within the next hour. And if you're looking to register for any of our upcoming webinars, I'm posting a second link in the chat there. It's simply cfo.co.za/events. And looking forward to seeing you in some of our upcoming sessions. Wayne and Johan, thank you so much for your positive contribution to today's session. Great to continue this partnership with Oracle and MTN. And thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Perfect. And of course, to all of our attendees, thank you all for being here today. Great to see some of those familiar faces, or rather names in the room, and look forward to working with you all again soon. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Cheers, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.